my video working for you.
There we go. We got it. All right, we're live. What's up, man?
Just another hot day down here in Phoenix.
Phoenix. Yeah, well, we're feeling the same thing here in Kansas City. We were up in the 103, 10 whatever.
Whew,
Yeah. But I'm
man.
part cat. I don't mind. I just get out there and just go with the cats. So, but it's crazy. It's the talk of the town. Anywhere you go, everybody's talking about how hot it is.
Yeah.
So, well, cool, man. Well, nice to meet you. Thank you for taking a minute out today.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks for having me.
You bet. So speaking of the heat, let's just get the elephant out of the room. I'm wondering, how did you survive the last 3 years with COVID? How did you get through that time period? And how has it changed the way that you do things now?
Yeah, so we during COVID, actually, as a American fighter pilot instructor, we had students coming into the schoolhouse that were really struggling because of COVID, the lockdowns, the masking, all that stuff, and I think a lot of people underscored the value of having people around and the camaraderie and the stories and all the lessons learned that come from sharing those life lessons with people around you in the workplace, at home, and what have you. And the class struggled a lot. And I just remember being on a mountain bike ride and looking out over the city and just sitting there and going, I think a lot of people are going to get crushed by COVID, but I'm not going to let that happen. I'm going to do something about it.
Hmm.
And so up to this point, I had started a couple of businesses. And so I built a website, and I just started emailing this one class a short message. And my pitch to them was, in less than 2 minutes, you can read this short message, and it's once a week, and it'll help you through your training. And it wasn't necessarily just fighter pilot information; it was more mindset stuff. And so that's where single seat mindset grew out of, was the initial part of COVID, and that's where it started, and it's grown into so much more since then.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and that's really what it was about. I think when you got your brain wrapped around what that time period meant, you had to just decide what you were going to do. And I think what you were before that was only going to be magnified. So
Yeah,
if you're that kind of guy that wasn't going to let life push you around, it was going to get magnified.
yeah, yeah. I agree. I think the important lesson behind all of that um, is it may be a personality trait, or just maybe it's just a decision. Even if you're not that kind of person, I think it's just a decision you got to make in your mind. Hey, I'm not going to be the next XYZ, but I know that I can level up, or at least get something out of this. And I'm stealing this quote, so I didn't come up with this, but I'm drawing a blank on who said it. But I think it goes a little bit along the lines of, if you reframe, you can never lose. So, and not lie to yourself, but reframe a situation. So if you have a business deal that goes sideways, if you bomb a test at school, if you say something stupid to your wife, which I do on a constant basis, just reframe that. Okay, I learned from it. And if you learn from it and you don't run away from the fear, you run towards it and go, okay, what's the lesson behind that? I think there's a lot of power to that.
I agree for sure. So there's so many things on paper that are a part of who you are. So what I would like to do is kind of simplify it a little bit. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of third graders at a career day.
Okay.
One of the kids looks up and says, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer that child?
Very shortly, I think a lot of little kids know what fighter jets are, and I just say, I'm a fighter pilot.
And then all of the kids are going to be like, "I want to be you."
It's pretty easy too, because if I wear my uniform and then I bring some little fighter pilot sticks and I go, I'm a fighter pilot. That's my job, and it's
Yeah,
not really a job. It's just an incredible opportunity that I get to go do every day. Um, yeah, I really think I have to. Sometimes I go to the jet. Even yesterday, I flew for the first time in a couple of weeks because I had to take some time off. But I just went to the jet and was like, it was exciting again to just start the jet and do it all over again. And I've been flying airplanes for 22 years now.
I was telling my wife the other day, I hit this point in my life as a baseball fan where I realized that baseball players are like cats. They're all kind of hanging out. They're kind of like lazy, just kind of throwing the ball. But when they have to react, It's
Yep.
lightning. It's like a cat. Like all of a
Yep.
sudden, you're landing on your feet. You're doing things that you didn't think were possible. That kind of reminds me of what a fighter pilot is. You guys are just, you're hanging out, but when that moment comes, you're all of a sudden this cat. Does it seem like that's how it all kind of pans out, kind of?
I like how you explain that analogy because I'm allergic to cats, so I'm not a big fan of cats. However, if you made that um, a cheetah or a lion
Right.
or a Bengal tiger, a big cat, okay, I can
Yeah.
get after that. And in fact, what's funny is that um, uh, Cajun, one of the Thunderbird pilots, he ended up crashing a number of years ago. Rest his soul. He would call everybody and he would say, "Hey, what's up, big cat?" And that was his thing that he would say,
That's
and it would
it.
catch you off guard because people never say that. And
Yeah.
so, a lot of us in the community have adopted Cajun's little tagline of, "Hey, what's up, big cat?"
That's
meaning
so
people
cool,
pound.
man.
Yeah,
That's so cool because it's so true. It just did. And I realized that my son's on the spectrum. And when he was younger, I put him into this contest to say play ball. And he always had a really hard time with speech. And when we were waiting for him to go up to say play ball, which he did fabulously, it was a really cool moment. I just was watching the baseball players and I'm like, you guys are just all kind of hanging out here, just
yeah,
kind of doing your thing, taking it easy, getting gum, throwing seeds in your mouth, doing all these regular slow things. But when things happen,
yeah.
man, they're
Get
diving for
ready.
balls, hitting home runs, doing all these crazy things in an instant. Um,
Yeah.
so let me ask you this: when you were in the third grade, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Okay, so in third grade, let's see. How old are you in? What grade are you typically in when you're 7?
That's probably second, maybe.
Second? Yeah.
Yeah,
So on my 7th birthday, I built a little F4 fighter jet with my old man on the kitchen table of my great grandfather's table, out on his ranch. And um, what's ironic is you've been talking about baseball a lot because I played baseball 5 to 7 days a week all the way through junior college,
yeah,
and I was playing a lot of baseball, but I also started flying airplanes at 16, and that moment at 7 when I built that fighter jet, I knew I was either going to play Major League Baseball or I was going to fly fighter jets.
right
And
on.
I but nobody ever told me I couldn't do it. It was just in my mind. And I think that's an important piece too, is as a parent or as a mentor, coach, uncle, what have you, you just never know what lives inside of somebody's brain. And if you, one, don't tell them that they can't do it. So silence is better than obviously crushing somebody's dreams. But then, you know, I think the question that I would ask a lot of young kids is why not? What's holding you back? You know,
Yeah.
it's not that you can't do it, it's why not do it type of thing.
So let's get to kind of the nuts and bolts of how this happened for you. Um, where were you born and raised, and what were some of the things that went into the seeds that made you want to be a baseball player and to look to the stars that early on and become who you are today?
So I alluded to it before, was the people around you, right? So I had some uncles that played a lot of baseball, and they were very good. And then as they got older, they started playing softball. But then I had cousins that played baseball. The sports programs had decent ball teams, so I grew up around that. And for me, that I was a pretty quiet kid, believe it or not, and that was my way of just kind of proving myself to the homies around me that and there was, I remember the day like it was yesterday when I tried out for the varsity baseball team. I was in 8th grade, so I was still in middle school, and I hit every single baseball during baseball practice off the left field fence or over the fence.
Uh,
And I've never done that before, and it was just one of those days, and I'm glad it was on the tryout day that happened, because I got a position to play center field as a middle schooler every once in a while on a varsity team. It was phenomenal. So there was a lot of that. It was my way of kind of proving myself because I was quiet. So that's where sports were for me, and it also kept figuratively my nose clean. So it kept me out of the drugs and the junk that a lot of the other kids were falling into. Additionally, we live by a lot of um, little airfields in Spokane, Washington, up in the Northwest. And anytime the weather was good, the little airplanes came out to fly. So there was There was always airplanes. There was ultralights out in the field. The farmers back then flew ultralights all the time to go take a look at their crops. And then we were on the extended runway center line for Fairchild Air Force Base back when they had B-52 bombers. And those B-52s would fly over our house, and we were perched up on a hill overlooking Mount Spokane in the valley. And those jets, I remember laying in the field, and I felt like I could reach up and touch the jet because it would just completely engulf the sky as they came in to land. I think there was just a lot of baseball and aviation influence around me as I was growing up. It definitely intrigued me. And as I grew up, I didn't have any pilots in my family, and there were no Major League Baseball players. So in a way, the deck was stacked against me. And I guess my thought as a kid was why not? Nobody's telling me that I can't do this. I'm just going to take the next step, and I'm going to go to practice. I'm going to play ball, and I'm going to turn my homework in. And I just kept going one step at a time.
So who was a hero for you growing up?
Oh boy. I don't really have a one person hero growing up, because I've thought about this. I have, like I said, my dad kind of built that fighter jet, and he stoked that aviation interest. But then my uncle Todd, he worked for Alaska Airlines as a mechanic, and he put me in the cockpit of a commercial. I don't think you can do this nowadays, but he took me out on the ramp, and I was up in the cockpit, and they were doing engine runs on a big commercial airliner when I was, 8, 9, 10 years old, and just feeling the whole jet, just sitting there. And I remember turning around and looking to the back of the jet, and I was like, this thing's as big as an apartment. And these guys are sitting in the seats. And that was a defining day. And I didn't tell my uncle this at the time because I didn't want to seem arrogant or like I'm better than you. But I was like, I don't want to work on these things. I want to fly them. Because the guys sitting there in the seats, they were running the motors and looking at all the gauges and everything. And I was like, this is the best view in the world, is right up here in the front.
Yeah. That's wild. That reminds me of the 80s, that recklessness, like how many dreams were hatched because somebody did that. I mean, I
Yeah.
remember one of the coolest people I knew when I was a kid. There was a gal that I had a crush on, and she took me to a Royals game, and it was a playoff game, and it was back in the day with George Brett and all of that. And he got me an autograph, and on the way home, he let me like steer the wheel and did all this reckless stuff. And he was probably drinking, at that time, and he probably just was full of liquid courage. But I remember how cool that was. Like, this guy knew George Brett. I got an autograph. There was all these reckless things. But if that didn't happen right there, which we're
Yeah.
all overly protective in this modern day and era,
Yeah.
the dreams, how many dreams get hatched because of things like that, you know?
That's such a cool story. And it kind of reminded me of just, going to a Mariners ball game growing up, and seeing Randy Johnson pitch,
Yep.
and, A-Rod's playing, and Ken Griffey Jr. And, you got all these names on the
Yep.
field, and they would always lose when I watched them.
Right.
But I knew that there was something magical about what was happening on the field, even if it unfortunately was on an individual basis among the players. But watching Randy Johnson throw a small object above 100 miles an hour consistently for 7, 8, 9 innings was a treat.
And for as tall as he was, the thing about Randy Johnson is he's a professional photographer now. I think
Huh?
he's just like a regular guy. You might want to look it up. It was intriguing. I saw it the other day. I don't know if it's marine biology. There's something that he's doing that's
Wow.
niche, and he's just another guy with a camera on the side and kind of adopted another life, you
Wow.
know.
That'd be
But
tough.
yeah, yeah. So it's I mean, he's just that kind of guy. Seems like if he gets honed in on something, he's in, you
Yep.
know. So
Yep. All
I'll
in.
never forget that bird he hit. That one pitch where the
Yep.
bird disintegrated.
I remember that like it was yesterday when I was growing up. I watched it over. Well, they play there. There was no social media or anything, so you had to
No.
watch it on the news, right? So you had to sit there and wait for the commercials, and then Randy Johnson, the bird exploding, and then they would reverse it and
Yep.
exploding.
One of the most iconic. I wonder where that ball is. It has to be in Cooperstown. Something's going on with that thing.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Um, so speaking of Randy Johnson and these figures we brought up, if you could meet anybody alive on the planet right now, who would it be? Who would you love to meet?
Who would I love to meet? And they're alive right now.
Yes,
Oh geez. Um, I know dead people that I would like to meet. Um,
we can open it up.
I mean, I'd like to meet Jesus. I think he would be just such a touchdown, and you've probably that's probably no surprise to you. You've probably heard that before. Um, I don't know. I think it'd be kind of cool to meet Trump. Just not that I'm a big like Trump fan or anything, but one of my businesses, I own real estate on a very, very small scale compared to him, of course. But I own some apartment real estate in one of my businesses, and real estate. I read a lot of his books. I don't agree with everything he does, just like anybody, but I think it'd be kind of cool to shake his hand. Another guy that's really funny that, and this is more the comedy aspect of me, but I don't. Do you know who JP Sears is?
Yeah. Yeah.
The
Yeah.
comedian.
Uh-huh.
I'd like to meet him just because he's such a unique dude, and his view on the world has shifted so much from when he started out and to now.
Yeah. Yeah, that would
Yeah,
be really cool for sure.
yeah.
So, what is it for you that's your motivation? I mean, you're doing some high level things that most humans will never do in their lives. What gets you up? What gets you through the day?
So thanks for bringing that up. I think, a few 5, 6 years ago, I went through a really big mental breakdown, physiologically, but my mind started it, and my whole body shut down on me. And so, granted, you know, everybody's got family issues and everybody's got, life issues, but then you pile that on with kind of an achievement mindset, I think is what I had going on, where I was just a high achiever, but I really hadn't defined success for myself. And after a couple of deployments, and unfortunately, part of being in the military is that you may be called upon to defend, which means killing people. And you start adding all of these life experiences, and your brain starts to mess with you quite a bit. Did I do the right thing? Could I have done things differently? And I just remember it. I was stepping out the door to go fly one day, and the guy at the desk, the pilot at the desk, he looked at all of us and he said, "You guys ready to fly?" And I said, "Nope, I'm not." And it was the only time in my career that I did that. And that started a very painful process of dealing with what was in my mind, kind of unpacking all of that. Um, so I say that because it can give people hope that you don't have to get there in the first place. And if you're predominantly male, I would think, and if you're a police officer or a firefighter or a fighter pilot or a doctor or anybody in a high stakes community, and the thing that you have that going for you, Joe, is that you get to talk. So everything can you and talking is not something that I wanted to do.
Right.
I'm tough. I got this, right?
Hmm.
But talking was the thing that worked me out of that, because that helps you solidify what's going on in your own mind.
Yeah.
And so as I grew, I remember one day, so I wigged out for a while, for months and months and months, and I was going to therapy. I knew I needed to do that. I would My wife stood by me the whole time, which was a lifesaver. And I looked at her and I was like, I don't know what's going on, but I'm going to keep doing this. And one day I woke up and I said, you know what? I'm sick of, I'm sick of doing this. I'm going to put my boots on, and I'm starting to get better. Today's the day. And that was kind of a defining thing. And then I went from an achievement mindset to success mindset. So what does success mean? So once I define that, there's also a trap in that too, because if you define success, once you achieve success, you kind of stop your story. And
Hmm.
so what that led me to even after that was the bigger why, right? And there's books written about this, people talk about it all the time, but the significance behind what you're doing. So if whatever you're working on stops at some point, if you buy a $20 million apartment and you sell it for 40 million, what are you going to do with that 20 million bucks? If you're going to go to Vegas and blow it and, end up in a van down by the river, as they say, that's not a good plan. So what's your why? So if you're going to take 20 million bucks and you're going to start a cancer nonprofit, if you're going to, Randy Johnson, if you're going to take pictures and help marine biology or whatever you happen to be doing, that bigger significance is really what changed my life. And so when we started Single Seat Mindset, it's just a group of fighter pilots. We're getting ready to publish our third book of Single Seat Wisdom. And there's 50 fighter pilot stories published between these 3 volumes of these books. It's never been done before. They're very unique and they're very short, because everybody got short attention spans nowadays. And the beauty behind that is that not only are we sharing fighter pilot stories unlike it's ever been done before, we give all the money to a children's cancer nonprofit.
Wow.
So um, I know it's not huge yet, but we've as of this date, we've given $36,000 to this children's cancer nonprofit just by writing 3 books.
Yeah.
And this was just an idea that started in COVID. So
Yeah.
that's been kind of, I think, the bigger thing that I looked at was the significance piece. my kids can destroy and rip apart and fight over the real estate business when I'm gone. They can sell my house for a couple shekels and move on, but they can't travel around the world and pull these books off of people's shelves.
Yeah.
So there's some significance behind that, and I think that's important as you roll out of bed every morning. If your business is about money, because I had a business, I owned it, I stopped that business, but it was all about money, and it didn't give me the gas that I needed. When my feet hit the floor in the morning, I just was kind of lost after a while. It was exhausting.
Yeah. So you get the chance to do something that a lot of people romanticize, whether it's in movie or otherwise. What is that euphoria feel like? You've done it a lot, but if you could just explain to the civilian brain, what does that euphoria feel? What is that feeling?
So there's is it called dopamine? Is that what your brain
Yeah.
really likes, right? So these dopamine hits, which is it's the, you eat a piece of candy, it's the sugar that gives you that high, right?
Yeah.
And just like anything, believe it or not, as a fighter pilot, if I were to fly, because I've done this before quite a bit in my career, and been super lucky to fly a lot. And when you fly a lot, you can at times, just like riding a fast motorcycle, you can kind of forget about the danger and the periphery things. And then also, you've been hit with that dopamine so much that, just like anything, um, it comes down. You need almost more. It's like a drug almost, right? So I alluded to it yesterday. I flew for the first time in, I want to say, 3.5 weeks, because I had some time off, and then there was a death in the family, and we had to deal with family stuff first. I need my mindset right before I step back into the jet. And I took off yesterday. It gave me just goosebumps right now, but it was back. I was like, I'm back, right? But it was still really, really fun, exhilarating. I got to fly with another instructor pilot. The student got sick, which meant that me and this other instructor pilot went out, and we just ripped around, had a blast.
That's great. That's really
Yeah.
cool. So of all the things that you've done, accomplished, and seen in your life, what are you the proudest of?
Being so I had a spiritual reversion to Catholicism, and that has changed my life more than anything. And anytime I go away from Christian teachings in my life, if I violate those, things start to get jacked up. And um, literally, praise God, I have that now, and it has made my marriage better. Um, trying to be humble, but I'm a better dad because of it. I know of it because people have told me that. So I'm a better dad. I'm a better husband. I would like to believe I'm better in the workplace, because it kind of reframed my mindset and what I should be doing. It allows me to approach situations differently. And so I would say, like, being a man of God, has really, really changed my life in ways that I can't even explain. I mean, it's just unexplainable on a spiritual dimension.
So everyone out there has a perception of you, family, friends, colleagues, clients, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I am a recovering um, achiever, essentially, is how I would say that. And what that means is that many times, Joe, unfortunately, throughout my life, anytime I burned people, it wasn't because I disliked people. I was so goal and achievement oriented that a lot of the periphery things, as I was achieving that, didn't matter to me. And so a lot of people could view that as I was abusing their relationship or abusing them, um, not directly, but I kind of forgot about the periphery things, because I'm like, I'm on a mission to get here. And the problem is it kind of has a scorched earth theory, or a scorched earth perception of, when I achieve that, I turn around and I go, crap, I did it again. I I'm here and I made it, but I forgot about a lot of the things along the way. And so part of me that can bring in some guilt, which isn't good. It can bring in fear of trying to do more next time. But instead of doing that, I've reframed it. I've gone back. I've asked for forgiveness. I've tried to foster those relationships as I go. But then I learn from that, and I go, next time I need to be doing these things along the way, so we can get to the same result. We can get to the same, the same end state, but we can have a lot more fun along the way. And that was just something that I had to learn trial and error over the years.
Yeah.
And I'm stubborn. So just admitting to myself that I suck. I'm going to do better next time. Suck less, jump higher, run faster.
Yep. It's the perils of the male ego. I totally get it. So, you know, we romanticize fighter pilots, obviously, with Top Gun and all of those movie franchises. Let's say you were depicted on the silver screen. Who's going to be the actor that will play your life story?
The actor that would play. So I'll be 100% honest with you. I have a really hard time on the spot remembering any actors' names.
That's fine.
So
Look,
on the silver, I haven't even thought. It's not Tom Cruise.
right.
I'll say that. So the guy that likes me, and I don't know his actor name, and I don't even remember his character name, but Top Gun Maverick, the guy that thought he was. So I'm usually the guy. I'm not the guy out front that's super cocky and arrogant that a lot of people think fighter pilots are like. That, in fact, that persona does come out in some, and it overshadows the other 90% of the guys. Right. So I'm not that guy, but I like to have fun, and I like to kind of, you know, poke here and there. I like to poke the bear a little bit. And if people are doing stupid things, I'm usually the one to speak up. So I'm usually the guy that's like maybe the second or third tier back.
Yeah.
Whoever you want to look at in one of those, you know, Top Gun movies. And I'm the one that's kind of kicking somebody's chair or making a, you know, kind of a comment in the back to get people to laugh, to keep things light.
Yeah.
Because I don't like it when things get all serious and people start to wig out about things, that, especially if it's not important. Yeah. And I'm usually the guy that tries to take the edge off of that.
That's cool. That's a great role. Absolutely. So, Dominic, if anyone wants to get your books, if they want to learn more about you, anything about your world, where do they go?
Yeah, singleseatmindset.com. So single as in single seat fighter pilots. And we fly single seat fighter jets, and it's singleseatmindset.com. There's a bunch of different offshoots on that website. We've kind of designed it. So you might find yourself in one of our ancillary websites from there, but you can find the books. There's a free program that I alluded to earlier that we designed after multiple classes for fighter pilots, and now we've geared it towards really anybody in, you know, maybe the last year of high school all the way through college, maybe the first or second, third year of the workforce. If you're looking for some definition and very short, impactful steps, we've got the Competent Wingman program. It's completely free. You can sign up for it, and it just kicks you those little messages like I was talking about earlier. But singleseatmindset.com for your guests, if they go to singleseatmindset.com and put /podcast gift, it's all one word. The first 3 people there, I'll send them a no kidding hard copy of the Single Seat Wisdom Volume 1 book series.
Excellent.
For completely free, and there's no strings attached. I'm not going to bug them with emails and all sorts of weirdness. It's just our way of giving back for that.
Right on. Dominic, this has been great, man. Thank you for opening up. Thanks for your story. I appreciate it. Thank you. And real quick, how do you pronounce your last name?
Teich.
Okay. You never want to assume. It gets you in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
So cool.
Teich.
Yep. Right on. Perfect, man. Dominic, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Joe.
Best of luck. Take care.
All right, bye.
See ya.